Hey guys, so it's Crimson Chains here. I'm just going to try to do this experiment where I'm going to talk you through a small drawing. So here, this is Siren Victor, just a little thing that Lucy and I were talking about. I ended up doing a small drawing for it. As you can see, the first stage is that I'm just covering everything in gray. This is because I'm going to use this single layer in the future, and I want to make sure that I haven't missed any spots. So this gray just stands out really nice against the white, so I make sure that I have everything colored in. You'll see that this layer, I only do one layer for these small drawings, and it's just beneath all the line art layer. There's nothing really complicated about that. And you'll see in this next step that what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a darker gray color, and that's because it'll contrast even more with the white. I don't start with a really dark one because it's hard for me to see the line art sometimes, but this is just a way to check up and make sure that all spots have been covered. And now we've pulled in the skin tone, which is the first step that I usually do. Now I pick the first shading tone, which is basically a more saturated color that's a little more red, and I just go over the parts that I think that need some shading. I don't really get very detailed about that. Usually you need to choose a light source. I kind of do what's called, I guess, pillow shading, where you just go with whatever looks so good, which I think works okay for simple drawings like this, but for more dramatic ones with actual backgrounds and stuff, I'd recommend definitely pinpointing a light source and then working through that. You'll notice that I've chosen another darker shade, and this one is also, once again, same strategy, which is a little more saturated, a little more red. Next are the eyes. When you choose the whites for the eyes, make sure that it's not actually pure white. Usually have it a little bit of a grayish tone. I usually do like a blue-gray. Sometimes you could do other versions. The point is just not pure white. Hair, you pick this, whatever tone you want to start with, and that's usually going to end up being the lighter tone since I'm using the skin color as the very base, which is going to dilute the color. All that's really important here is that you use the oil paint brush when you're doing the first layer, and that's because it's going to basically blend the color beneath it, and in this case it's the skin layer, so what's going to happen is it's going to make the layer a little bit lighter. I usually use the dense watercolor brush for this harder shading where I want a higher contrast, and then I'll go back over it with the oil paint brush, like here with these blues, to add in just little subtle hints, subtle touches. But anytime I want something to really stand out, I'll use the dense watercolor brush because it has less of a blend effect. In Victor's wings, I go over it with the oil paint brush, once again, just to make sure that it gets that lighter tone so that I can go back and add in darker ones. The interesting thing with gold is that when you're shading with gold, it's good to remember that gold is like a warm thing, so when you're shading, once again, you're going to want a little more red, a little more orange. You're not going to use so much of the less saturated browns. You really want to get that warm tone out. And once again, it's all just kind of paint by numbers at this point with my style. You start with the dense watercolor brush to lay down the hard cell type shading. Then you use the oil paint brush, and what you're going to do with that, you'll notice the video is actually that the way I shade with it is that I'll pick the original color I wanted for the base color, and I'll use the oil paint brush and go over the darker cell shading to try to blend it, and I think that just makes a really nice effect. At that point, you can go over it again with darker shading to really highlight and help define other points. Once you've gotten all the colors in, what I usually like to do is I go and change the line art just a tiny bit. I usually make the line art for the skin a little bit more red. It just helps the warm tone stick out. I do that with the gold as well. Victor's hair, I kind of went through several things. Eventually I decided on kind of like a dark purple because it's just not too warm, not too cold. This is me showing what clipping layer is like, which is to say that when I want to use filters such as overlay, or I want to add designs without worrying about messing up the bottom layer, I'll set up a layer above this colored layer, and I'll push that little button to this upper left above the layer options, which is to clip, and that just means that, same with pretty much like locking the layer, anything that I draw on this clipping layer will only appear on the pixels I already have down, so it just makes it really easy to stay inside the lines, and to also experiment with things if you're not sure about what you want to do, and you just want to try something out, then you can throw it out pretty easily if you don't like it. Last thing I do is that I gather up all these things, put them into a single folder, and then use filters on it. I put them into a folder because it's just an easy way for this filter to affect only the foreground piece. This would really only matter mostly if I had a background I wanted to exclude from the filter. But luckily it's just a simple foreground picture, so it wasn't really necessary to gather the thing up into the separate folder, but still that's just a way to easily separate out the foreground and background if you want to only work with one. So this is the finished piece, Siren Victor. I hope this video was somewhat informative. I don't know, I feel like if I did this again I'd want to get a better microphone and probably also not be recording at 2:14 a.m. Wow, I'm very tired, but also I don't know, I think it's interesting. Alright, well this is Crimson Chains signing off. Have a great day.